Hello and welcome back to Blue Tinted Glasses for another Blue Tinted debate. I forgot the name of it there because it's only the second one. It is episode 2 of the Blue Tinted debate. Last time out, I had Graham, who is an interesting character. If you're watching Graham, then hello to you, mate. Thanks for coming on a couple of weeks ago. We will get him back on. He's took some big flack recently for some of his comments he's made on Radio Leicester. So we'll get him back on the channel soon. But today I've got Manny, who is he's on Foss Hub a lot of the time. Obviously, like Ragsy, Foss Hub is a playback channel, if you like, on playback and on Twitter. So I do speak to Manny quite regularly about all different types of things. Some of them we do agree on. So I don't think there'll be too many arguments tonight, but there are definitely a couple of things that we disagree on. So Manny, mate, how are you doing today?
I'm good, mate. How are you doing?
All good, mate. All good. It's Friday. I mean, I've not been at work anyway because I've had annual leave. But yeah, it's Friday. Got the Chinese on the way. Looking forward to it. All that stuff.
Happy days.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Right. Where do we start? So there are a couple of things I want to talk about today. Let's talk about one that me and you have discussed for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, which is the main man, you could call him, in Leicester's team this season so far, Wilfred Ndidi. He's been a big talking point, I think, since the season started. Not really down to him, more because of the manager, where the manager's played him. But where do we start? I mean, we saw a completely new, different Wilfred Ndidi last season in the Championship under Enzo Maresca due to where he played him. He kind of played him as a box crasher, number 8. We were all kind of shocked at how well he took to that role. Yes, it's the Championship. That's already one argument I have for you, is the Championship. But yeah, before we get into the kind of this season, what did you make to him last year?
I think it was surprising, refreshing. Those of us who've watched Wilf since he joined us in 2017, I think most of us would have said he wouldn't have been able to play that or execute that kind of role. You know, the forward stretching, the getting into the channels, the crossing, the shooting, that kind of play. We're so used to Wilf being there destroying things. We kind of pigeonholed him, even though he'd been with us so many years, that's all he could do. And last year, we were so impressed with the way he adapted to Enzo's new system.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Because one thing I'll start on with, and I've said this to you a few times when we've spoken on playback and stuff, is, you know, for me, Enzo was still trying to replace Wilfred Ndidi. You know, Enzo Maresca did not want Ndidi in that role, in my eyes. He did it because we didn't have much option there, really. I know we had McAteer, who could play there. We had Dennis Pratt, but he was definitely looking for an upgrade because in the January window, we saw us linked with Fabio Carvalho, who's now at Brentford from Liverpool. Also, Stefano Sensi, who I believe was going to be brought in to play in that role. Some others have said that he might have been played in the Winks role as backup to Winks, but I still think that it was to play in that 8 role. So despite how well he did, even Enzo wasn't convinced entirely, surely, if he was trying to replace him.
Well, perhaps at the beginning you might have thought that was the case, and he might have had some of the same question marks of we had. How can the player? You never know how a player is going to take on new ideas. Are they capable of doing the things that I'm asking? And in the end, you might watch a few weeks of pre-season and have some kind of ideas, but a lot of it depends on how much the player is willing to buy into what the manager's telling them. And by the end of the season, Wilf was absolute stalwart in the team, non-negotiable, I call him. And I thought he was absolutely excellent all of last season. I can barely think of a bad game at all. I thought he was sensational all season, and he's continued that form into this.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Well, let's start with this season. So, look, where do we start? I mean,
let's start with pre-season. Come on, let's start with pre-season. You and I, we had it out between us about sort of Wilt's. Would he be capable of translating that Championship form into the Premier League form? Would that be fair?
Yes. And I think you can back me up here by saying that my whole argument was entirely on as a number 10. I don't have too many concerns about him in the number 6. I think his form definitely dropped from where it was. But then when we got relegated, in that season, but everyone's did. To be fair to him, everyone's did. Because even if I think back to 2021 or 2020, probably 2020 and 2021, whenever Wilf missed a game because of injury or suspension or something, we looked half the side without him. Like, it's kind of when you see Man City now, when they Rodri, they look a different team, and we were like that with Ndidi. But yeah, our discussions and debates and well, not arguments really, but in pre-season, I think were largely down to the part that Steve Cooper was playing him as a 10 pretty much when he did feature. Now, I don't think I'm too out of order here for saying that, despite the stats which we get into, I think I just don't think a Premier League club should be starting Wilfred Ndidi as a number 10. Now I'll pass that over to you, to respond to that. I don't think he's a good enough 10. Well, he's not creative enough. He's not technical enough to be a number 10.
It kind of depends on what you're looking your 10 to do. So the traditional way to look at a 10 is your James Maddison type, your Phil Foden type, your Palmer type, and in our case, Buonanotte. And they can comfortable with the ball, they can eye for a pass, they can beat a man, they have a trick, all the kind of traditional 10. I mean, 10's the Maradona number, it's the exciting number, it's the playmaker. And you just don't see Wilf as a playmaker, and I think we'd all agree that. But there are other attributes he can bring to that positioning. So a 10, for example, that can win the ball high, and if you win the ball high, you're one pass away from getting an effort on goal. And case in point would be the Palace first goal. He won the ball just over the halfway line, one straight pass over the top, Vardy puts it away 1-0. And I think some of the question marks with Wilf was, we knew he could do the first bit, as in he could physically compete for the ball, he could win the ball, but could he find the pass to cause it? Well, he did. And if people want to start saying, well, that's once, and there are times where he can't find that pass at all. But you have to take it as a whole. And a 10 like Maddison wouldn't have the physicality to win the ball in the first place. So that chance is created because Wilf has other attributes to bring to that 10 role. Look, I'm with you. I'm a traditionalist. I want to see, the Maradona equivalent in my day. I want to see James Maddison style Buonanotte at the moment. Sensational. That's what we would like to see. But for a person who's asked to do that job, whose natural profile is somewhat different, I just feel he did a sensational job, and it's hard to criticize him. You could criticize perhaps the team structure as a whole, and perhaps whereby we could fit him in elsewhere for a net benefit for the team, totally. But it feels a little bit like, because he's not always the best creative talent, that people do miss other things. Like, you can get an assist by challenging for a ball and it drops down to Buonanotte to score. I think that was the goal that Buonanotte scored against in one of the home games, I think, one of his
Villa.
assists. So, yeah, that's right, the Villa game. And every assist doesn't have to be a killer pass. It could be a challenge. It could be a ricochet. It could be a 5-yard header. It could be a 3-yard pass. It just doesn't matter. Whatever creates to create the goal is still effective. So whilst it's not perhaps as pleasing as the eye as many 10s could be, it's still effective, although albeit not my first choice.
Do you and for me, there is no coincidence that the first game of the season that we actually have won is more of a balanced midfield. It's I mean, we have our own. Well, we have opinions on Winks. That he was a part of the discussions early on because as we all just expected that Winks would play every game, not on merit as such, but just because it's Winks. He seems to. I put a tweet out about Harry Winks being dropped about 6 weeks ago, and I got slaughtered for it on social media. And now look, we've won our first game with him coming out of the team. But do you think now that? Do you think the midfield is better now with Ndidi, Skip, and Buonanotte than Winks, Skip, and Ndidi?
Undoubtedly, one thing that Steve Cooper has finally found is the correct combination midfield. That is the trio that you want to have in midfield. Remember, Wilf also has the energy to actually get forward too and support. And I think we saw the JJ spectacular goal. He was left wing. He crossed it with his left foot deep, I mean, you'd almost somewhat you think, what are you doing in that position? But it shows his mobility, and he is mobile. He's got those long legs. He eats the ground up. It's dare I say it, a little bit Vieira-esque, although I'm not steady on. I know, but it's that kind of style that he's getting forward still. But if you look at the numbers, which I'm sure we'll get to at some point, he's still doing the defensive work too. That defensive work isn't always in the traditional DM defensive sector. It can be advanced, it could be left, it could be right. Wherever Wilfred is, he's competing hard, and there's a fair chance he's going to win the ball back.
Everyone in the chat, thanks for leaving your comments so far. Keep getting your comments in. Let us know what you think to the topics we're discussing. We are talking about Wilfred and Ndidi right now. Not Ragsy, sorry. I've just seen Ragsy in the chat, that's why. Manny, I've just seen, I just heard you say about the stats that we get into, and we are going to get into it. So I've got some defensive stats and attacking stats here. Let's start with the attacking stats, seeing as though that we were just talking about him as a 10. Here they are. So as you can see, he is third or joint third on 4 assists. He has 3 shots on target all season in 18th place. And then he has 263 passes, which I know it says 25, but if you take into account all the players in the Premier League, obviously that is quite high, 25th place. So yeah, you know, it's a bit of an oxymoron in a way, because you look at Wilf and you just don't want to think in any way that he could play in the 10. But I get your point. You know, the stats don't lie most of the time. They do lie if you look at Leicester's league position, I think. But that's for later on. But now, if we look at his defensive stats, this is where he has kind of reclaimed his form, if you like, defensively, because I think he did drop off. I do believe he dropped off after probably 2021. He just seemed to be a shadow of the player that he was. But here you can see, obviously, there's an aerials battles lost one there, but equally on aerial battles won, he's 4th place with 11. Headed clearances, he is 1st with 10, and blocks, he is 1st with 5. So talk to me on some of them stats we've just looked at, mate.
Well, when the start of the one I can see, the aerials battles lost and won. He's obviously high up on both. Now, the reason why it's a good idea to have the aerials battles won and the ones that are lost is it just shows what he's actually doing. He's trying to compete for so many balls, and he's got a bit better than, well, a 50-50 record perhaps of trying to win it. But the fact is his physicality is in there, trying to challenge for the ball where it is in the air. So he has that height factor. I think he's 6'2", and we don't have a huge amount of height outside the defence. And those kind of aerial challenges are little details that fans don't really look at. They're not really looking for. They're looking for the exquisite stuff, you know, the nice pass, the intricate play. But that ugly side of the game is vitally important. And those 2 stats, his blocks, I think there was another one that you had up there where he's rated first on both.
Blocks for and headed clearances.
First on both, and bear in mind, he's 1 minute he's playing attacking midfield, he's playing right 8, he's seen him at left wing, he's trying to cover the line on corners, he's playing DM sometimes, left side, right side. He's here, there, and everywhere, but wherever he's on the pitch, he's being effective, and the numbers back that up.
So, like I said at the start of the stream, we there's not a lot of for us to disagree on. However, I think the difference between you and I on the 2 main topics I want to talk about tonight is that I feel that you go overboard on a couple of things. Now, this one right here, it is the title of the video. Now, sorry for quoting you, from 6 weeks ago, but you said to me that Wilfred and Ndidi is good enough to be a top 6 or a big 6, let's say, a big 6 player. Now, for me, that is absolutely outrageous, but I would love to hear what you've got to say and if your opinion has changed, but I imagine it hasn't because he's been good since then.
Well, you showed some of the attacking and defensive stats for Wilf this season. If you combine them as a whole and look at your attack and his defense, then combine it with the fact that he is playing in different positions around, then benchmark it against other players on those lists. And you tell me some of those other players who play for the big 6 teams, if you isolate those players, I mean, look at how Bruno's doing attacking stats compared to Wolf. Do you really want to look into it?
But don't you think it's different because of the situation that they're in? You know, like you could look at, you know, you could compare, I don't know, Caleb Okoli with Lissandro Martinez, but you'd rather Lissandro Martinez in your team over Caleb Okoli.
Would you?
Yeah, come on, man. Come on.
Italian international Caleb Okoli, physically much stronger, 6'4" versus 5'10" in a Man United that's been a shambles for 2 seasons, or Okoli that's on the up, just called to the Italy squad in a struggling Leicester team is shining. I know which way the trajectory is going. I'm taking Okoli.
So would you genuinely rather have, you know, I'm not on about position-wise now, I'm on about just the player. If you look at Wilfred Ndidi and Bruno Fernandes, you would rather Wilfred Ndidi in your squad?
No, not at all. Not at all. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is people get blinded by the shirt that the player is wearing. They're not focusing on the end product that the player is actually delivering and whether that end product is translatable to a top 6 club. So somebody would say, well, yeah, he looks good, but he's only playing for Leicester. Well, that's suggesting that other players that play for Leicester haven't gone on to play for top 6 clubs and looked excellent. It's a mixed bag. You could have your Kantes and your Mahrezes, or you could have your Drinkwaters who didn't work out, or more recent times Chilwell that's not working out for him. So the benchmark standard depends on how you wish to take it. I think, remember, if you put a player and you surround him by better players, do they improve or get worse?
They get better.
So if Wolf is delivering these stats with Leicester, with his teammates, and I love my team to bits, of course, but if you improve the standard of your teammates, Wolf's performance improves. So those stats would improve as well. And I think if you look at, let's focus on top 6, we said for a second, who's playing it in that, let's say Wolf is a DM, let's class it for the sake of this debate, who plays DM for some of the big clubs? Well, we just played against Thomas Partey the other day. Who do you think got the better of who?
No, but come on, Declan Rice. Because they'd rather. My point is, you know, because they would play if they didn't have Partey, right? They'd have They'd play probably Rice there, and then you would have Rice over Ndidi. You know, you would.
But Partey played. You're picking on their best one, not the one who makes their first team.
No.
You're saying could Wilf play for Arsenal? So could Wilf replace Partey in that team?
But Partey shouldn't be in the team. Is my point.
If they didn't have
but if they didn't have Partey, it would be Rice. This is the point I'm making. Let's go through, right. So let's say Man City, we're agreement. He doesn't get in Man City's team, right? He doesn't start for Man City.
Well, not
come
playing,
on.
Of course, not when Rodri's playing, of course. But Rodri's injured, right? So who's playing now?
No. Just let's just base this now of everyone's
Rico
fit.
Lewis.
Let's just say everyone's fit. Let's say everyone's
fair
fit.
enough. Okay, Rodri.
Man City, no.
No chance. No.
Liverpool.
Which player is playing in that position against? You've got to do it head to head. You have to do it head to head. So who's the player that plays in their team that Wilf would be up against? And then you're asking me if Wilf is equally or better than that player. And if they're equal, then they're capable. If they're inferior, they're incapable.
What we say, McAllister? We say McAllister or Gravenberch? You know, there's 2 there that play in a double pivot.
I don't mind Gravenberch. I like his physicality, but how's McAllister's stats this season?
I don't know. I don't know the stats.
Not as good as Wilf's are the answer. So there's a question mark. Now, everyone's going to say, oh, he's a World Cup winner. He played for Argentina. Well, yeah, but if Wilf could easily fall for a team that played great. It doesn't. And he had a decent World Cup, but I wouldn't say he was particularly amazing. No.
Okay. Does Wilfred Ndidi start for Chelsea? And their 2 pivot, I suppose, is Enzo Fernandez and Moises Caicedo.
That's a good question, and that is probably a harder case for me to make because those other players certainly have a higher potential, a higher ceiling. I think my question is, are they delivering on a weekly basis as consistently as Wilf has done over 7 years in the Premier League, nearly 300 appearances? And yes, those 2, you probably pick those 2 because they're sheer potential and what you think they'll grow into. But in terms of actual level that they execute on a weekly basis, I don't think it would be crazy to think if players like Lavia or others could play games, that Wilf is good enough. And if Dewsbury Hall's good enough to get games for Chelsea, which I still think he is, by the way, not necessarily ahead of others, but he is good enough to, he's not going to dip the team if he plays a game. And I think Wilf would fit into that. He probably would be a first teamer, but if there's an injury and you brought him on, he wouldn't look out of place.
Ant said three of his assists he doesn't get if he is playing in a big 16 because they won't be looking for long balls in behind consistently. Ragsy says Ndidi's had a good start, but the downfall with Ndidi is that in possession-based team he struggles on the ball and doesn't do well in transition if left on his own in a 6. Here's a point that I remember making to you. I completely forgot, but Clemo has just reminded me. Surely if Wilfred Ndidi was so good, he'd be somewhere other than Leicester right now because he was out of contract and nobody offered him the money that Leicester did. Nobody. Allegedly, Sevilla, they wanted Ndidi, but they didn't think he was good enough to offer him a certain wage, so they said, "Nah, I'm all right. You go off." And then he came back to Leicester, he re-signed with Leicester. So why did none of these? Liverpool needed a midfielder, and they needed a 6 in the summer. Why did
they've been linked with Wilf in the past too.
Yeah, 3 years ago. But why have they never gone for him? Why has no big club ever, even in the Europe days for Leicester, why has no big club ever gone in for Wilfred Ndidi, made a bid?
Because I think for the what I would call the layer 1 eye test, the person who just watches a highlights package or a short stinted version of the game, and you don't see Wilf necessarily doing anything exciting. Like I said, his greatest attributes are all the ugly stuff, the uncomfortable stuff. And that really doesn't often get bums off seats. You're asking me, why didn't anybody sign Wilf if he was so good? They make mistakes. Why did Man United sign Mason Mount? Why did they sign Anthony? Why did they sign Sancho that didn't work out? Why did Chelsea sign 20 players that they just dispensed with within 5 minutes?
Why did Leicester sign Samari?
Every club will get some right and get some wrong. Now, specifically with Wilf, I think you have to try and reverse engineer it from his point of view. You get offers from, let's say, Sevilla, maybe in France, maybe somewhere else, and you're embedded in Leicester. You've done your degree at De Montfort University. Your family lives there. You're settled. You're comfortable. Leicester are offering extremely competitive wages. Even Sevilla don't have our kind of budget for the season. Nowhere near. So we can offer much higher than Sevilla. And as tempting as Sevilla might be, when it comes down to the crux and your family have to leave your friends, and you have to leave your friends, your wife has to leave her friends, you have to take your kids out of school, it's a new language. There's multiple reasons why you might do it. To ask the question though, why didn't a Man United even, who would spend 70 million on a 31-year-old Casemiro who keeps giving the ball away so the opposition can score, and you wouldn't even think about Wilf on a free. I think they made a mistake, and that's why I was celebrating when he did sign. I thought it was an absolute coup to get him to re-sign.
Right, I want to move on because my Chinese, I just heard the door, like someone's just got the Chinese downstairs, so we don't want to go too far over half an hour. So the next topic I want to discuss is the manager situation. Now, we are both in agreement Steve Cooper should not be in charge of this football club. One thing we do disagree on is your level of, your niche short list of managers that you would like to replace Steve Cooper. Now, you are very much, and I don't think there's much argument with this part of it, that you want somebody with the system to come in, someone who plays Enzo, Pep, that style of football, right? Maybe not even specifically the same system, but at least that style, right? However, I think that some of the choices or some of the names that you've thrown out there are completely wild. I mean, you want us to go in for Arteta's assistant? No. Yeah?
No, Pep's assistant.
And Willy Caballero.
Or Enzo's assistant. Correct.
Right. Now, just before I let you go off on it, right, the question would be, I didn't want Cooper. I would have rathered Enzo this season. However, I still don't think that we could have played Enzo's system in the Premier League and done much better than what we have done now, results-wise. Because you look at Burnley and you look at Southampton, two teams that, and I know it's lazy to say look at Burnley, look at Southampton, but I am saying it because that's what we can go off in the last year. It didn't go well, and it's not going well. So why would Enzo or a Pep assistant or Willy Caballero have done differently with a Leicester team in the Premier League?
Well, the players were already fully trained in the system. They've been doing it all season, so there's no.
Southampton's, to be fair, and Burnley.
Well, so Southampton, yeah, absolutely, and we'll get into the reasons why perhaps those two fail and ours might not, and essentially it will come down to the quality of players. You're asking players to execute specific jobs. It's almost like NFL versus rugby. Rather than having an all-round game, you get assigned a specific role, and there might be 2 or 3 actual roles that you have to play, and you will retrain that every day. It doesn't matter who you're playing, home or away. You are training the same way, the same system, and eventually it's just practice, isn't it? It will become perfect at the end. Whereas you can have the alternative approach is, we're playing so-and-so this week, so we need to cater for this player and this player and this player. We need to set it this way. So we're going to change our team to incorporate their strengths, which is a traditional way to do things. We're playing whoever it is this week, so we're playing Son this week, so we need a faster right back, for example. The advantage of the opposite way is, from a player's point of view, you're simplifying the game for them. I know what I'm supposed to do. I do it every day at training. When it comes to match time, I'm going to execute. And the manager's not going to go crazy at me for doing, as long as I don't go off script, everything is fine. Then it becomes about the effectiveness of the system. And you mentioned, I want something like it. I don't want something like it. I want it. And for those, you can see my grey hairs on my chin here, so I'm a bit older than I look. And I am old enough to remember the stories of the Dutch 70s. So it starts with Rinus Michels, Dutch coach of the 70s, Ajax team, including Johan Cruyff. Johan Cruyff, they played for the 70s. They get to 2 World Cup finals, lose both, sadly. And then Cruyff takes it to Barcelona, takes over Barcelona, transforms Barcelona. The system is the system. It gets taken on by Pep, who learnt it from Cruyff. He evolves it. He brings it to the Premier League. And then all of a sudden, something different happens. We have a bunch of coaches from around, you'd say most of Europe, who want to come and learn from the master and become a disciple of his. Arteta, Company, Ten Hag, Maresca himself. These people are now searching out the person who can teach them the intricacies, because Maresca played against it when he was a player of Sevilla. And he saw something that we've all seen, that the system is what I call it the football cheat code. It's about creating those overloads in midfield, particularly, and then trying to give yourself a chance to get one-on-ones or a free winger one side. Plus, you'll have multiple attacking threats, and there's various other factions. We all know that. And we saw it last year with Ricky P dropping in, and you play 3 centre-backs, you spread them across, and you have effectively an extra man in midfield. You can't argue with its effectiveness. Now, people will argue, is it translatable? And you mentioned Southampton and Burnley. So we could go with the obvious, such as Man City win with it, Arsenal finished second with it last season, Brighton finished mid-table with it, Barcelona win La Liga with it, the Euros is won with it by Spain and their manager. Bayern lose without it, then seek Vincent Kompany, who got relegated with Burnley. Now, Loxy, Bayern Munich, do they have a reputation of being daft?
No.
Why did they appoint Vincent Kompany then?
Because they want the system.
Why did Chelsea appoint Maresca, who'd had one full season in management from a team that had been in the Championship?
Well, we can't say they're not daft, though. We can't say they're not daft.
They can't be that daft. They've made billions of dollars,
daft,
right?
By the way, I'm not saying it's daft. I'm not saying that wanting this style of football is daft, because I want something similar, but I just don't. I hear what Ragsy's saying, right? We're not Burnley because we're not shit. We have Prem quality players that wouldn't stupidly give the ball away. It's a myth Enzo wouldn't have been adaptable in the Prem. He's adapted with Chelsea. Manny makes a point. Our team suits possession style footy because of the quality of the players we had when we came back up. The likes of Winks, Ricky, and Vesti, 3 players now who are out of the team. How funny is that? Because of the terrorist Steve Cooper. When you can isolate a fullback with either Mavididi or Fatawu, you're so cooked. Southampton play 2 inverted fullbacks with a worse team. Man, let me just talk to you about the names then, because I know I mentioned Willy Caballero and I mentioned Pep's assistant. Who is Pep's assistant again? Say his name.
Carlos Vicens.
Now, my whole thing on this is, do you really think, let's say we sack Steve Cooper? So I agree with you maybe when Enzo left. But now, halfway through a season, if Cooper was sacked in 2 games' time, let's say we lose to Southampton and is it Ipswich or Forest after Ipswich, and we lose to Ipswich, right? Let's say we lose them 2 games, they sack Cooper. It's what, end of October. Do you really think we should bring in a manager like that in end of October, mid-season, in a relegation scrap?
What would make more logical sense? The players to go back to a system that they've been well versed in last season, or for a new manager to come in and set a third set of ideas that they've had in 6 months? There's your answer. It's not a risk. They've trained in it. They're used to it. They know what they're doing. In fact, if you read, I'd argue if you read between the lines, you saw the comments from Wout Faes recently. You've seen the comments from Connor Cody recently. And if you hear any interview from Ndidi to any of the other players, do they not all comment about Maresca's tactical superiority, genius? They opened their eyes. They'd experienced something they'd never seen before. They didn't say the traditional that the manager's great and we, top guy, we love him kind of stuff. They focused on them kind of opening their eyes in terms of the vision of the game. And these are players who've been playing since they were kids. So they've seen something they've never seen before, and they've all been wowed by it. We saw something at Leicester City that we'd never seen before. And most of us, apart from those who were complaining, we were wowed by it. I feel like we were on the right train, absolutely. Arsenal took a risk and picked an assistant manager as their manager who'd had 0 Premier League experience. Experience is overrated. Don't get fooled by this whole, we need somebody who's done it before. You'll find lots of managers who've kept a team up for a season, maybe 2, but have also taken teams down. It's the merry-go-round is what we need to avoid. If you want to have conventional wisdom, you're going to get conventional results. The club were already on the right path, and I think it's less of a risk to go back to the path that we are on, because, like I said, it is the football cheat code. The question mark is only if our players have the ability to execute it effectively enough to either keep us in the league or do better. I would argue with our players, their training methods they're already used to, our wingers in particular, which I'm sure we'll get to another day, we have that players to finish mid-table in this Premier League. I think fans are really selling us a bit short, just assuming that 17th is our only ambition. I think we're better. I think we're significantly better than that.
I do now. I had doubt, like I said on Fox's then on Wednesday. I had doubts, but now that I've seen us over 7 games, I do think we are much better than what I thought. And I agree with you that I think a new manager would see us rise the table a little bit more. I don't think we're anywhere near a top 10 team, but I think we are with the current players, with the current squad. I think with recruitment we could be in maybe a year's time. But yeah, so we've mentioned a few. Do you think our squad? Just this is a quick answer, please. Do you genuinely think our squad is good enough to finish 12th right now if we had the right manager?
If we had the same system, the same training methods as last season, continued exactly along the same veins, added those few players.
So you think Enzo would have had us 12th? You think Enzo would have had us 12th?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Interesting.
Oh yeah.
Interesting. All right. So we mentioned a few names, mate. Just to end on this. So who is the man you would pick? Is it Caballero? Is it
a young, energetic disciple of Pep? So whoever's been trained by the man himself, who is young, hungry, and has an intensity of personality. You have to have the intensity. The reason why Ten Hag fails is he doesn't have the intensity of personality. You could see Arteta screaming in somebody's face. You could see Pep screaming in somebody's face. We've seen Kompany really screaming in somebody's face. Maresca is perhaps a little bit calmer, but he hasn't really need to scream at somebody too much so far. If you can have that football intensity, that energy as an individual that will, teams will reflect the personalities of their manager too. So if you can combine the system with the right personality, then absolutely we would. I think we would do significantly better.
Yeah, it's funny that you say about Yeah, the manager, the intensity on the players, whereas Steve Cooper probably is there massaging their calves after a game, probably saying, "It's all right, lads, come on, let's go, come on." Someone's been a bit harsh to you, Manny. Sorry, but this guy's deluded. Absolutely no way would have Enzo's tactics would have worked with the squad in the Premier League. But on the flip side, there is a lot of people who do agree with you. Thank you, Manny. I've been saying that Prem experience doesn't mean much if the style of play is outdated. We almost became a modernized team, and now we're regressing, unfortunately. Cooper was a desperate man because no one wanted to appoint him. And you can say what you want about Cooper, but at the very least, he's got 5 more points than Rodgers did in 7 games. Yeah, to be honest with you, I don't really like comparing things to the relegation season, because I do believe that the relegation season was a freak of a season. So many things just went wrong. The manager, some of the motivations from the players who were probably had their eyes on other teams. So yeah, but no, I agree with you in the most part. Like I said, it's just some things I think we do disagree on. When you go, I follow you along for about 75%, and then your last 25%, I'm like, whoa. But,
we're the thinnest foxes. If there's one club who can do the unthinkable, have we not learned? You know, we are the 6th most successful club in the Premier League era. We are in the top 6 of success since the Premier League started. We've won in my lifetime, 2 League Cups, 1 Community Shield, 1 Premier League, 1 FA Cup, Champions League quarterfinals, Europa semis. I mean, if there's one club who should have belief in what this club can achieve, it should be Leicester City. And this whole mindset of going back to, we'll just 17th is great and we'll stay up, and the gap between, you follow the conventional narrative way too much. You've got to, it's absolutely, it's just not ambitious enough for me. It shouldn't be ambitious enough for Leicester City either. I
agree. Right. Thank you to Manny for coming on. Much appreciated. It would be a little bit longer, but like I said, unfortunately, I've got a Chinese. But me and Manny will definitely do another video very, very, very soon, because there's a lot more for us to speak about. Just a quick final couple comments. Ray says, let's use Cooper to keep us up. Then we must hire someone with a vision to build us back to top 10 status. Dorco says Enzo ran away as soon as he heard about possible point seduction. Selfish. I personally feel that there was more to it than that. I feel like he was lied to by the board on the PSR situation. Locks could never shrug off a good old Chinese. Absolutely not. Can never do that. And finally, there was one comment I wanted to just bring up. There we go. If Enzo stayed, it wouldn't be plain sailing, but by the end of the season, it would be 12th or 13th. Right. Thanks to Manny again. You can check Manny out on Twitter at Cyber Duderino.
Duderino. Come on, you never watched The Big Lebowski? Watch The Big Lebowski this weekend.
No. And also Foss Hub. If you go to Foss Hub as well, he's quite often on there on playbacks, but he'll be on the channel very, very soon. If everybody could hit the like button and hit subscribe as well, that'd be much appreciated. I will be back tomorrow with another live again, because it's international break. I don't know what it's going to be about yet, but I will be live tomorrow, so I'll let you all know on Twitter. Cheers, Manny. Thanks again, mate.
All right, mate. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Lovely stuff.
Enjoy
Thanks all.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye-bye.